This is the Be Strong Families webinar series, saying strong and positive for ourselves and our children. I'm Robyn Harvey, and I'm joined by Jennifer Johnson. And today we are going to have a great conversation about being super parents, or how not to be. While you're coming in, if you could put your name and your location where you're joining us from in the chat so we can know who's in the room, that would be great. We'll go ahead and get started in just a few minutes. When you're doing that, if you could please make sure that everybody can see that. And Andrew, I'm having a hard time. I don't have an everyone button.
I don't either. But hello, everyone. We're in DeKalb, Illinois, just west of Chicago. Oh, now you have it. There we go.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. So again, if you're just joining us, this is the Be Strong Families webinar series, staying strong and positive for ourselves and our children. If you're just coming in, put your name and the location of where you're joining us from in the chat. Hi, Terry from Texas. Nice to have you here. And Stephanie and Andrew.
Kristen.
Lola from Idaho. Thanks for joining us. And Kristen and Rebecca from Chicago. Hey, Rebecca. We're about 60 miles west of the city. Isn't it a beautiful day today?
It is so nice.
I know. We really needed this cool weather. All right. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce ourselves one more time and let you know that this is the Be Strong Families webinar series, saying strong and positive for ourselves and our children. You could put your name and your location in the chat. We'll go ahead and get started.
Great. We can go on to the ways to engage, I believe. Is our next slide. Thank you, Andrew. So we have a few different ways that you can join in on the conversation, and we really encourage you to do so. So if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. We'll ask for you to unmute yourself, and then you can speak. You can also type your comments in the group chat. Just make sure that in that little drop-down menu, it's going to everyone. Sometimes it gets stuck on hosts and panelists, but we want everyone to be able to see your contributions, your responses, your questions. And of course, please be patient with us. Sometimes we get a lot of comments and we try to read them all out loud and to hear everybody's voice. Once in a while, we accidentally miss something. So yeah, please raise those hands and give us your comments.
All right, all of our webinars and trainings and cafes, we all run on agreements. This is a co-creative process where we make sure that the environment we're in is both physically and emotionally safe. So we ask that everybody commits to speaking from your own experience using I statements, following the golden rule, treating other people the way you want to be treated. Bring your full presence. Please try not to multitask. I know that that's hard. And if you need a minute, go ahead and take a minute. If you agree to these agreements, if you could just please quickly type I agree in the chat, then we can continue on. Thank you. I see all the agrees coming in. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Thanks, Katie and Araceli. Perfect, Rebecca. Awesome. Andrew, you can go to the next slide. All right, Jen, you want to introduce yourself first?
Yep, sure. And the name of today's webinar, How Do You Do It All? Fighting the Pressure of Being a Super Parent. We thought that with the beginning of the school year happening around these few weeks for most people, this was a really appropriate topic. We have some great questions that come from our Parent Cafe in a box deck. I'm Jennifer Johnson. I'm a mother of a tomorrow 6-year-old. She's turning 6, and a 2-year-old. And my husband and I work from home, and we don't have a lot of outside help with the kids, although we're excited for that kindergarten to start. So yeah, really family oriented right now. And that's me.
Awesome. Super excited that you're here. I'm Robyn Harvey. I serve as the director of the program and training team for Be Strong Families. I've been with Be Strong Families for quite a long time, and I host quite a few webinars. I really love the method that we're using now, and really bringing everybody's voice in to answer these questions that come from our Café series. I am a mom of 6 boys, and I have a couple other children that call me mom or use me as a parental figure. I have boys, they range from 35 to my youngest is 21. So this is so interesting for me, Jennifer, though, because you're just entering into like this huge pressure cooker, right? Like your daughter's starting to go to school. Now you're going to have like PTA and all of that, gobbledygook that comes from being in school. My kids were in sports, lacrosse, tennis, wrestling, all of that stuff. It seems like a distant memory, but the pressure still remains to be a super mom. Although I have adult children and emerging adult children, I still feel that pressure. So I'm really excited to open this time together with everybody to see how these questions are answered and to learn from people. Originally, we had a third presenter, Gretchen Rodriguez, who serves as our program manager for Be Strong Families. Unfortunately, Gretchen couldn't be with us today because she was being a super mom and getting all of that school stuff ready for her daughter. So we'll miss her, and you'll have to catch her another time. She's a great young lady with a huge amount of wisdom. Thanks, Andrew. If you can go to the next slide.
All right, so for our first question today, we have how will you teach your children that seeking help is a sign of strength and not weakness? This is a good question, and just the term super parent and super mom, it really makes me think a lot. And I remember the first time I saw somebody or read something or saw some video where someone was saying like, no, I don't want to be a super parent. I want to be a parent. I don't want to be expected to do the super part. And I like, especially to nowadays, I feel like things are a bit individualistic and fractured, and people don't always have that built-in support system. So I have had to learn how to ask for help, because it's not a sign of weakness, because we can't physically, spatially cannot do it all. And so I feel like doing that as an example for my children instills that that knowledge of it is a strength to be able to ask for help, to know when and how and where to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a question that kind of pricks my heart, because I used to not ask for help, and I would just run myself ragged and try to do it all. I was the mom who was the Kool-Aid house. My house always had snacks. My house always had 1,000 kids in it. And my granddaughter lives with me now. She's 3, and I make sure that I model asking for help all the time, because I want her to see it as a normal practice. I did not do that when I was a young mom. I, thought that it was a sign of strength and, awesomeness that I was the person that could do it all. People would always say, like, do you ever sleep? Well, the truth answer was no, I didn't sleep. I didn't take care of myself. I wasn't healthy. I didn't have any outside interests other than my children and work. So for my granddaughter, I'm doing it a little bit differently. I ask for help. I make sure she hears me ask my husband for help, for her, her parents for help. I think that modeling goes a real long way here. That there's honor in both being the helper and the helped.
Yes, absolutely. And I also like reflecting on when I have asked for help and when I haven't. I'm realizing that I've asked for help only in like dire situations, and it really shouldn't have to get to that. And with kindergarten starting, I'm really trying to like network with parents and build a community where we can feel free to ask each other for help without having an expectation but but to be comfortable asking each other for help so we can mutually support each other. And whether that's carpooling or, babysitting, swapping once a month, because frankly, it's very difficult to find childcare right now. I think a lot of people are experiencing that. And so when you've called 6 daycares and nobody's gotten back to you, how can we continue to ask for help? So there's referrals. Like I've recently learned that there's a place you can call to help get a referral for daycare. But also that informal network is really important. So we have a great neighbor who has children the same age as us. And that is like the biggest gift about moving to this street, is just that relationship that we've been able to build. And we recently started like on, not every weekend, but Zoe went over there a couple weekends ago for a couple of hours. And last weekend, both their kids came over for lunch and a movie after they played outside. And so we're giving each other like a little break, like whether we need to do something or just have some space to think and not be like constantly asked for things by our little kids. I like that kind of asking for help, and I'm learning how to do it more.
Yeah, I think that for me, I had a group of moms that I did that with as well. Like I didn't have to do traditional daycare. I didn't work traditional jobs really. I was a consultant for a lot of my kids' younger years. So I was always going back and forth with friends. Can you watch my kids for a couple hours? I'll watch your kids. We both had big families. So, it really was no skin off our back to, do those kind of things. But I think that like for people without a community, if they're isolated, if they don't know their neighbors, if they have a lack of supports like that, I think that you're right. Like you have to go out of your social connections and get concrete support. And that would be like the referral place and stuff like that. So I think both of those avenues sometimes have to be exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like, for me, at least, a lot of that was ego. I didn't want to be the one always asking. So it felt much better when I found friends that there was a reciprocal kind of relationship with. It eased my ego, I guess. I see that Kristen has commented in the chat. She says, my kids are really young. So we're working now on verbalizing our actions, that it's okay and it's good to ask for help, especially with our toddler with a very independent spirit. I'm seeing how important it is for me to model asking for help or naming it out loud instead of just giving my husband the look that I want help. I love that, Kristen. I have that look too. I think we all do. Yeah, I find myself doing that a lot too, Kristen, is really intentionally naming what I am in need of. And the other thing I find myself doing differently with this younger generation than I did with my children is asking or giving them permission. Like, I see you're struggling. If you need help, it's okay to ask me. And then really like, as soon as they ask, like making sure that I dive in and help. So there's some kind of like reward. So it starts wiring their brain or her brain to say, this is a good thing. I don't roll my eyes, even though internally sometimes I do. Like when she says, like, I need milk. I need you to help me get more milk. And I'm thinking, oh, for Pete's sakes, you just had milk 10 minutes ago. Why do you need more milk? I'm in a meeting. I usually try to, as much as possible, be really cooperative with that, even if it rubs me wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that, giving them permission, or it's like modeling and giving permission, because one thing I've reflected on a lot, having little kids, and my parenting style and how, like what I get from society / how I was parented was to be independent. Like independence is this great, amazing thing. It's so emphasized from early on. Like, what can the kid do on their own? Look what they're doing already. Whoa, mommy doesn't even need to help you. And like, it's those little subconscious things that can build up. And yeah, it's really important for me to recognize that and say, like, when is independence, like where is the line where it's a little more harmful than helpful?
Yeah, I love that. And that's like how I was raised a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit different because my mom and dad, they wouldn't ask me if I needed help. They would just see me struggle, assume I needed help, and take over. It wasn't help. So it almost felt like, okay, I'm not trusted to even do these basic things. And it eroded my self-confidence instead of built it up. So I've really tried to like, fight that natural instinct of it's just faster if I do it. Like I could help you tie your shoes and be a little frustrated, or I could just tie the darn shoes myself and we could be out the door. So really just stepping back and not giving into that impatience that I have.
Yeah. And Terry says, I agree. That we sometimes send the wrong message to kids that asking for help is a weakness.
Yeah,
yep, those messages.
It is. Anybody else like to chime in on this question? This is a good one. What are your strategies? How do you teach your kids that seeking help is a sign of strength and not weakness? You can type into the chat and we can give you a second for that, or you can raise your hand and talk with Jen and I.
If there's no takers, Stephanie says, my problem is that I have trouble asking. I agree. I grew up to just handle it.
Yeah. How do we fight that conditioning then? Like, if that's like what we were taught to do and what we were born with, what are some ways that we can like disregard that? Jennifer and I work together. And so we talk a lot about unlearning things. And like part of learning and growing is unlearning our bad habits and maybe not even bad habits, but things that we were conditioned to believe were right. And that absolutely could be right, or they could be done a different way and better. So Kristen said same, and sometimes I don't know who to ask for help. Yeah, I think that was a common parenting problem for me too.
Yeah, me too. Just today, I was having like a parenting related issue this morning, and I swear my thought pattern is like, oh, I'm going to call so-and-so to talk about it. And then immediately it was, oh, but what if they're busy and why am I burdening them with my problem? And then it's like, well, I need support, but who could I talk to instead? Like it's like this and then reflecting on that thought pattern, I can see that it's kind of like wired into me to be like, I have a need, I'm gonna fill it. Oh no, don't fill that need because you're being greedy, and which is not true. We all need that sometimes. Good point.
Yeah, and Gail said didn't know how to ask for help. It was seen that I needed help and it was given. Yeah, Gail, I kind of did that rescuing, like hovering above my kids too for a while, because that's how I was raised. Like you see a need and you fill it. But it didn't make me okay. It didn't give me the confidence to ask for help. And Andrew, I see that your hand is up.
Thanks, Robyn. So this is a good question. I'm just kind of thinking about it. I feel like I'm qualified just because of because I'm going to be having a kid in January of this next year. And I think I really want to emphasize for this, child growing up that it's okay to not know the answers. I think, when I look back at how I was raised, I think there was a lot of this pressure, both implicitly and explicitly said, that you need to have it figured out, especially by the time you're 18. It's just like, oh, you need to have solidified ideas or opinions about who you are because now you're 18, you need to know this. And it really like creates a situation where you start digging in on opinions that might not be yours. It's more of your family's. And I think that what I want to do is to encourage my children to think about not knowing something as a good thing. I'm just like, come, let's talk together. Let's have some open-ended conversations about this. And it's good that you don't know because it's a good way for you to find that out. I might not be able to give you the answer because I found the answer for myself, but I can at least try and teach you the tools that I use to find that answer for myself. And those tools might give you a different answer than they do.
Yeah, I love that, Andrew. I love nurturing the spirit of curiosity because I think that we don't have all the answers. And I think, for me, the older and wiser I became, the more I was able to say to my kids, I don't know. I can ask other people and we can try to figure it out together, but I don't have the answer to that. And the world is different now from when I was raised. So there are things that I just generally don't know. Yeah. All right. Andrew, you want to go to the next question, please? So this question is with our social connections protective factor. And it's who assists you with being a good parent and how do they do it? I love this. And I don't think that an hour-long webinar, I can list all the people who assist me because I have a really awesome community. I've built for myself a little cadre of moms and dads who challenge me, sometimes by just me watching their parenting techniques or how they handle situations. Sometimes some of my friends feel okay enough to directly challenge me and say, why are you doing it that way? And make me think for myself about what my intentions are, what the objective is, and any like damage I could be doing by, parenting in that fashion. My parents were a product of their parenting. And so I learned a lot of what to do because I had a really decent childhood. And I learned a lot of what not to do. I mean, I came into parenting with a list of things that I wanted to mimic and not mimic from my parents. And then, like, the other thing is, I am an avid reader. So I read lots of books. I read lots of parenting books by a lot of different authors. Those are the ways that I learned.
This is a hard question for me. Just good parent.
All right. What is a good parent?
I mean, I feel like, I do the best I can. I would like to label myself as a good parent, but definitely you cannot do that alone. The last question relates to this so much. And I would say just, especially coming out of, being in and coming out of the pandemic, but coming out of some major isolation, that was really difficult for me and had a major impact on my parenting. And I can see that like lack of social connection, in many ways, that meant we didn't have outside help. We couldn't have like swaps with friends. We couldn't get together with friends. Those conversations were about parenting and just about life and things going on in general. Because one thing that really helps me is just having a good, deep conversation with somebody, even if the problem or the situation or issue or whatever it is, the topic of conversation is not going to go away, but I'm going to feel differently about it. And I'm going to have like help with processing things is really, really important to me. And I come away from conversations with friends and sometimes family members, feeling like a little bit lighter, or at least I've thought about something a different way, heard a different perspective. So that really helps me be a better parent. And although that's not necessary to do in person, like a phone call, a Zoom call, those are all great. I do love getting together with people in person and having those conversations. So we've got some, let's see, Kristen says, it has been challenging for me to find my parenting support village with both my children being born during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's understandable, Kristen. And hopefully as the pandemic continues to recede and other safety precautions are put in, you can start, trying to find that supportive village because we all need it. And Stephanie says, I'm always trying to adapt and improve my parenting techniques. Some of what I do, I learned from my own childhood, the good and the bad, me too. Some of it I have learned from reading. I also am an avid reader. Great. We should swap some lists, Stephanie. And yet other stuff from just watching others and their parenting style. Yes, I think we get a lot from just gathering around people. And I was going to say before I read those chat comments was something I really respect about Jennifer. She's a joiner. Like she's the opposite of me. We talk about this a lot. Like she takes her kid to the park and she comes away with phone numbers of other moms in our area. I go to the park and I'm sitting on the bench, like, please don't notice me. I don't, but I think like we have to figure out, this kind of goes back to Kristen's comment, like she doesn't have her supportive parenting village yet. Sometimes we have to put ourselves out there to find these people. They're not just gonna, drop in our lap. I found my supportive parenting village through support groups that I went to when I was a foster mom, and through my, my religious organization that I was a part of as a young mom. And then I guess, my sister and not very often did I make good friends with my kids' friends' parents. It's just, I have a different little bit of a standoffish personality, where Jennifer is like, come be my friend. I'm gathering folks now. So however you need to do it, I think that there's huge benefits in gathering. Anybody else? Who assists you with being a good parent, and how do they do it? I would have to say also, let me just give a shout out to my great husband too. I think he assists me in being a good parent. He's a super dad, and not a super dad, but a really good dad. And, can look and know, he knows me well enough to know when I need a break, when I need to disconnect and, recharge my own batteries. And I think that is super helpful for me, because parenting is 24/7. It doesn't stop.
Yeah, ditto that. And one thing that about my husband and I that I really appreciate us kind of supporting each other in parenting is that we are committed to improving, especially improving our communication style, and listening skills. And it's not an easy road, especially when we have like heightened nervous systems the majority of the time. But man, you learn a lot about yourself. And so I really appreciate that he is so committed to being such a great father. And that really helps me be a better parent as well.
Right. Yeah. And Gail added, my circle of friends and family are awesome. We learn from each other with the babies. Yeah, that's great. I have a friend named Cheryl, and I really attribute my parenting success as a young mom to her, because she was about 10 years older than me, and she befriended me through our church, and we swapped daycare hours a lot. She had 5 kids, I had 6 kids, and we went back and forth and kind of formed our little group. But when I was a lonely stay-at-home mom, she would call me and we would talk for hours on the phone. It was really good. And she saw things from a way different perspective than I did. And we were able to form that friendship that we both respected our stances, but we could have a good debate. And it led to a lot of like digging for me and researching different things that she would talk about, that really broadened my worldview. All right. Andrew said, my wife's family has a cadre of nieces and nephews who I've told plenty of dad jokes to. So that experience has definitely assisted me with getting in the dad mindset. Next up is buying khaki shorts and New Balance shoes. Okay, Andrew, I'm looking forward to that. Maybe we can have a Be Strong Families style show.
Yeah, you're definitely really prepared to be a dad if you're thinking about all those things, for sure.
Right. All right, Andrew, go ahead and flip to the next question. How do you know? Oh, go ahead, Jen.
No, I was just one more thing about Andrew, just because like coworkers as well. And I appreciate Andrew's humor at bringing things about parenting, about work. And so, I mean, because work is such a big part of our lives, we inevitably discuss parenting issues, especially being part of an organization like Be Strong Families. So that's another part of my support. So thanks, Andrew, for the funnies. All right, next question.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've told many of Andrew's dad jokes at the dinner table. The next question, how do you know when something you're doing as a parent isn't working? And what do you do to change course? And we'd love to hear from anybody else.
Yeah, feel free again to raise your hand. We'll unmute you. We love people joining in.
Right. How do you know when something you're doing as a parent isn't working, and what do you do to change course?
I find that changing course is something you can't usually do immediately. And I know like what I'm trying to do is be more present in my like physical body. Like, what am I feeling? Because I'm really learning like, wow, my nervous system is so on fire right now. And that's contributing to my reaction instead of like thinking, like taking a step back and thinking about how am I going to deal with or how am I, my child is hungry, but instead of asking me for food, she's screaming. So if I'm finding like, okay, listen to my body, and when it's not working, I have to practice. Like I have to practice when my kid isn't there. Like in my mind, I need to say like, okay, here are 3 things I can do. When I forget to do them, that's okay. Don't beat myself up about it. And then apologize and remember to do it. So that's one thing I'm working on right now is practicing those changes in behavior that I know are going to help my children and myself and the whole family dynamic.
Yeah, so this is a great question for me because I am change adverse. Right, Jen?
No.
I'm change adverse. I mean, I don't think anybody really
but open
wants to change.
You're human.
I'm open to change, but change is scary for me, and it doesn't always feel really good. So I have to find myself being really intentional. So like making like a plan, like when this kid does this is going to be my response, because I've learned over the years, like my power is in my response, and I can totally give away my power by acting like a crazy, like, unhinged, or I can respond with love and kindness, because not only am I human, but my kids are only human too. And really like trying to figure out how to take that step back when we've got this whole big life and this whole big, like, we're super parents, right? We're doing it all. We're making dinner and we're cleaning the house, and our kids are, well groomed and look cute and company ready. And I used to really care about those things. And then one day, like, I didn't. And let me tell you why. So I have a son named Josh. He's 26. He's my first birth child and just the light of my life. And one day we were sitting at, I'm going to just call her a friend's house. And she had a beautiful setup on her table. And here's all my ragtag little boys sitting around her table, me and my husband. And she made a really good dinner for us. So nice to be taken care of. And the lady said, my friend, she said, my fingers hurt so bad. Joshua said, this food is really good. She's like, oh, my fingers hurt so bad because I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I chopped all these fresh vegetables. And my cute little cherub of a little son, who was like 4 or 5 years old, he said, frozen vegetables taste just as good. And I was like, my kids don't care if they have, yes, fresh vegetables are super nutritious and they're super good. I love them. But my kids weren't judging me about those kind of things. They were judging me on, did they feel safe? Did they feel loved? Did they, have what they needed? They weren't judging me on the quality of my vegetables. And right there gave me a lot of motivation to not try to be like Martha Stewart parent. Now, but I still love to bake. I still love to cook. Jennifer knows I make some cool stuff, but that's not like wrapped up in ego anymore. If I don't get to the zucchini bread today, no one's going to die. It's going to be okay. Right? Stephanie's adding, when my action and response does not make me or my child better, does not improve the situation, then I attempt to change their behavior by changing my own. Stephanie, I'd love to hear more about how you change your behavior. Oh, and thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, that story will always stick with me. I made frozen vegetables last night and laughed about that story in my head. Anybody else want to answer? It's a great question. How do you know when something you're doing as a parent isn't working? And what do you do to change course? So how do we change our own behavior? Stephanie says she changes her child's behavior by changing her own. One of the things that I did when I wanted to yell as a parent, I whispered. It was just an intentional thing. So, I have a pretty loud voice. It carries already. But when I yell, it could be frightening for kids. My kids didn't respond to it anymore. I had to yell louder and louder and louder. So when I changed and I said, okay, I read this in the book, you should whisper once or twice. And so they have to come very close to you and listen so they can hear what you're saying. And it really did change the tone and the energy of my home.
I've tried that as well, and I like it, and I need to remember to do that more often.
Yeah. And if someone whispers to me, I always wonder what they're saying. So I do, kind of close in to hear what they're saying. It kind of decreases the proximity.
Yeah, I also know that something isn't working when it keeps happening the same way over and over. So one thing that we're working on right now is going to sleep in our own beds. And I'm noticing the same pattern every single night, the same type of whining, the same, if we get to bed a little too late, it's usually much worse.
Yeah.
And we're not really strict about bedtime and routines. We like to be able to have the flexibility to stay in the backyard when it's really nice out later. However, I'm realizing painfully sometimes that if I miss a window, then I will be sitting next to a bed for literally 90 minutes while my children fall asleep, if they'll let me sit there and not, be attached to me. And so last night I kind of had a light bulb moment, if we're going to keep doing the same thing, we're going to keep having the same result. And so it's kind of okay, let's go back to the drawing board. How can I help my kids transition from a co-sleeping situation to their own beds where they feel safe, and that it's good for everyone? So I still don't have that answer, but I know that I can't keep doing the same thing.
I got some great ideas for you.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 comments. Andrew said it's not something that has happened yet, but one thing I already know won't work is trying to craft a social media image of being the perfect parent. Great topic, Andrew. Or having the perfect family. I want to be very intentional with how I view social media, and I don't want to get into the habit of comparing my day-to-day parenting life with other people's parenting highlights. Oh my gosh, I love that. And it is the reason I left Facebook for about 16 months. I couldn't do Facebook for a long time because of just the curated life of my friends and family, when I knew that that's not exactly how it was, but I still found myself gauging my success, about theirs. The other thing I had to do was stay off Pinterest, because I love Pinterest and I get lots of craft ideas, lots of food ideas off there. Mine never looks just like that. So Andrew, I love that. I think it is totally applicable to this parenting stuff. And Stephanie offered me too. I can say my response in my head, walk away, and then come back to them with a question. What will make you feel better? That's great.
That's nice. And
she affirmed Andrew. She said, yes, Andrew, what is that saying? Comparison is the thief of joy. Yes, it certainly is.
Yeah, with social media and other parents, or just, accounts that I follow, or my friends or family, one thing I've really learned how to do that, and I'm probably not doing it all the time, but I really am I am happy for them. And that is not a reflection of me, what I have, what I don't have, what I do the same, what I do differently. And I like celebrating differences as well. Oh, you do that, I do something different, but I recognize that there are multiple ways of doing it, where before I was a parent, I threw out judgment way too much. And this is a conversation I have a lot with my sister, who is a little bit younger than me, and she doesn't have kids yet. But she recently called me after she took a short flight to ask me about some parenting questions, because she was curious about like the norm with your child on a plane. And my first thing was like, everybody's different, and you do not know what that parent went through before this flight. And it's very different flying or traveling with children than as a single person. And so it's in for me talking to somebody without kids, but who's very curious about those things, and seeing kind of a reflection of my pre-child self sometimes, and saying like, okay, I don't need to compare myself, and I don't need to judge what that person's doing, because they're doing the best they can in that moment as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I going back to like the whole like having theories about parenting before you have children. I read a quote really early on. It was something like, I used to have 7 theories about how to raise a kid. Now I have 7 kids and no theories.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, we can think that we are the expert and we know better, but oftentimes, it's just about not being in that person's shoes and not living their life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. All right. Anybody else want to chime in on this? The question was, how do you know when something you're doing as a parent isn't working, and what do you do to change course? It's a new message, and Andrew just posted it again. All right, Andrew, I think we can go off to that last question.
All right, we've got, when and how are we stronger together than alone? When and how are we stronger together than alone?
I think that my answer is we're always stronger together. At least
Yeah,
I am.
I can't think of an example when I'd want to, especially or about parenting, where I'd want to be alone.
Yeah. Right. And alone to me is like with isolation, like they're not even talking about my co-parent, my husband at this point. Like but alone to me is like without any social connections or support. Like, so yeah, I don't think that there is a time where I'm stronger alone. I think that I need to be with people who challenge me to reach. I think maybe when I'm alone, I become a little bit more complacent than I would be when people are challenging what I'm doing. Yeah.
And sometimes for me, it's the challenging part is really important, but also going through a similar thing and kind of affirming and just knowing you're not alone. Like lots of times, and I think we touched a little bit upon this earlier, but when just the having a common situation to somebody, even if you have a different parenting style or different priorities or a totally different routine, but just being able to have a conversation about what's going on for me and my kids, and what's going on for them and their kids, and kind of sharing those ideas lifts a huge weight off of my back that I didn't really perceive there before. And so that's just like for me, a really simple example of being together is just having a conversation. And then of course there's, like I have those great neighbors I was talking about before. Like when I was sick, they brought over a meal. I had some other care packages from very nice neighbors as well. And so that made a huge difference that I didn't realize. Like I never would have asked for that, but sometimes accepting help is just as hard as asking for help. And like, it was just a good feeling of, wow, together we're stronger, and I can't wait to, repay that favor.
Yeah. I agree with that too. I had a group of friends. There was like 6 of us. We all had bazillion children. And I remember like the comfort I would feel when I would reach out to one of those moms and say, you'll never guess what Johnny did today. And I would say, like, Johnny drew on the sofa. And they'd be like, well, my kid let the cat on fire. I was just like, oh my gosh, we're all in this like craziness together. And it made me, right, dang it, Johnny is right. It just made me feel like, okay, like everybody's got stuff. And I'm not a loser because Johnny drew on the couch.
Yeah. And then you can have someone over and not feel bad that the couch is drawn on, because you know that other people are in a similar boat. Like, that's like another thing about parenting. It's like, I care so much less about those little things, like the frozen vegetables, because I know that really other people are going through the same thing, and they're not going to say like, oh, you have a big line of permanent marker down your wall, what's wrong with you? They're going to say like, oh, how funny is that? That's the same at my house.
Right. And I think like there's something about knowing it, like I can't be the only one with a line of marker down my wall, but then going and seeing it and being there with people and knowing it. You know what I mean? Like we can know book knowledge, we can know in our head that everybody has challenges.
Yes.
But when you are, in community and you're sharing those challenges and helping and assisting each other, it just becomes more real and more tangible instead of just like, it could be a story. Stephanie said, I think sometimes accepting help and not feeling guilty is an obstacle to overcome. We need to understand our turn to help someone is going to arise. Agree.
Yes. And she also said earlier, when we're at our lowest, most tired and vulnerable point, that is definitely the period where we need our support systems.
Yeah.
Yes. And like the support and also the sharing of experience, but the sharing of resources. So together, there's so many things that I learned about by my network of of coworkers, of other friends, of neighbors, of people that I've run into on the street, just community members, and then I've in turn been able to share some of that. Like here in DeKalb, we have a really
Here in DeKalb, we have a frozen internet. I'm not sure where she went, but I'm sure she'll be right back. Does anybody else want to raise their hand and answer this last question? You
am I back?
Yep, you're back.
Oh,
go ahead. Here I was at here in DeKalb.
Okay, yeah, I could hear you the whole time. That we have a great community garden, DeKalb County Community Gardens, and a food bank. And so one time in a grocery store, there was another mom who needed some help buying some groceries. And because I knew that, I was able to say like, yeah, absolutely, let me help you. And also, did you know about this great thing that you can like call this number, go to this place and go online and actually order some stuff for when you're in need? And that is, of course, like a real need, not just like I need to vent because of, Johnny drew on my wall or opened up the flour bag in the kitchen and it's all over. Like that's a need too. But this, like those concrete needs, I love sharing those things and knowing like, okay, here's where you go if you need childcare assistance. Here's where you go if you need some food on the table, and so many other things. And so that's why alone we can't know all of those things. So that's another reason I think we're stronger together.
Yeah, definitely. That resource sharing is super important. Super important. All right. Does anybody else want to answer the question before we move along? When and how are we stronger together than alone? All right, Andrew, if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so there is an ending poll up. If you'd answer those 2 questions quick, that would be great. And today we're going to amplify something. And so this hashtag from Be Strong Families is amplify staying strong, not super.
I like
That's
that.
great. That's a really good one. I think it would just be Amplify, it's okay to ask for help, would be mine. And Jennifer's is Amplify Stronger Together. Awesome. So if you want to put a hashtag Amplify in the chat, that'd be great. Andrew offered Amplify Togetherness. Perfect. Thank you. Amplify, shout out to Robyn for, you say my dad jokes. I'm going to continue on, Andrew. Keep them coming. My husband thinks that I have a little dictionary of them. Awesome. All right, go to the next slide.
All right.
Oh,
We
go ahead.
have in August, we have our Monday, A Taste of Cafes. You can come to an hour and a half cafe. It's a shorter cafe. We usually do them on Fridays, but this month they're on Monday. So please join us. And if you want to take your phone camera to that QR code, it'll take you straight to the link, or you can go to our website under cafes, and you can find this to sign up. This coming Monday, we have Emojis 101, decoding the many faces of parenting. That is the theme for this cafe.
That sounds like a fun one.
Yeah, that does sound fun.
Yeah, and Rochelle said, Amplify, needing help is not a weakness. Thank you, Rochelle. And then this slide, we're just talking about our upcoming webinars. There is a link there, and there's a QR code. We do offer certificates for training hours. If you're interested in that, you can contact info@bestrongfamilies.net to request one. And then you go to the next slide, Andrew. Our Be Strong Family Shop. So we offer all kinds of great resources on our webpage, bestrongfamilies.org. You can go there and you can shop for cafe resources. We also have personal resources such as journals and perpetual calendars, some great coffee mugs. If you're still masking up, I think we still have some Be Strong Families masks there. You can go check all that stuff out and represent. Thank you.
And you can visit our YouTube channel. You can subscribe so that you can get notifications for all of our videos. We have lots of great webinars. This one pictured here, how do we honor the father figures in our lives? I think that was one of our really, really popular ones. Mm-hmm. So you can go back and see our archive of webinars, and they're also streamed live on YouTube there. So that's where you can see more of this. And we have these types of webinars where we're answering cafe questions and having discussions together. We have some webinars with guest presenters that really bring new insight and a great experience. So visit us there.
Awesome. All right. So we've come to the end of our time together. On behalf of myself and Jennifer and Andrew, who always does our tech in the background. Thank you. Thank you for spending your lunchtime or after lunch with us. We appreciate your presence here. We appreciate every time you comment or raise your hand or just listen. We hope that you have a really great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.